Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We have continue to receive a significant increase in viewership, and so we welcome you all, and most importantly, we thank you for allowing us to be with you in your viewing environment Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, scheduling permitted, to discuss whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life that you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. We are here because God is concerned about that which concerns you. So you may call every day now on the T-Mobile caller text line at 267-992-1424. You can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships. Whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind, God is concerned about everything that concerns you. So we are here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, brought to you by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock. The water collects in a natural artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is Earth's finest water. And for those of you who continue to give on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you who have made a monthly commitment to support the broadcast, we thank you for your support and for your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here to address whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. We are always here Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, scheduling permitted. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your daughter is not being responsible with the way she is living her life. And you want to know, what can you do to get her back on track? So let me begin by saying this. This is not just now. You have watched her live this way as an adult. So, I'm going to break this down for you because often as parents, we create the monsters. And I'm using that term because I have children of my own. So we create the monsters that want to do things the way they want to do them. They're sometimes obstinate, they're sometimes defiant. They are always going to come to us when they need us. The problem is that often we become enablers. We enable them to make bad decisions. We enable them to behave badly. We enable them to do whatever it is they want to do the way they want to do it. And you've watched her live this way as an adult, but most importantly, God has allowed me to see in that secret place of your life, you have enabled your daughter to live this way. So what you're troubled about, even though you didn't say this in your communication, what you're troubled about is that your daughter has become the good time girl. You're troubled because she's all over the place. You're troubled because she doesn't live the way you think she should be living, and you're right. She doesn't. She is truly all over the place. And here's the good news, though. There are a lot of young people who are all over the place, but when we train them up in the way they should go when they grow old, they won't depart from it. In other words, they're going to experience some challenges just by their state of mind, and we're going to have to watch them go through those challenges. And we're going to have to decide that we're going to take a step back, that we're not going to be the one who interferes with what God is doing in their life. We don't like to see our children go through discomfort, even though we've all been through some discomfort. We don't want them to endure the same challenges that we've had to endure, even though we've had to endure challenges. Now the point is, as a responsible, active and responsible parent, we have to tell them the challenges we've faced so that they understand that we have the tools to help them navigate it. If they choose not to take the tools out of the shed, then they're going to go through their own challenges. You know, I'm going to give you an even practical example. One of the things that I've often told my son is that what kind of father would I be if I know there's not just a pothole, but a sinkhole in the middle of the road that you're heading on. And I decide I'm not going to tell you there's a sinkhole, I'm going to let you drive through it. Then I'm not an active and a responsible parent. So I'm always going to tell you the pitfalls. I'm always going to tell you when there's a bump, a speed bump. I'm always going to tell you when there's a sinkhole. If you choose then to drive over the speed bumps at a high rate of speed, you're going to suffer some damage. If you choose to drive through the sinkhole because you think you can make it, you're going to suffer some severe problems. If I don't tell you, then that's a different issue. But if I tell you and you choose to do it anyway, because you're a thrill seeker or because you just think that you might be able to get up enough speed to get over what I couldn't get over, then that's on you. You know, it's your decision. But one of the problems becomes that when they do it, when they drive over the speed bump at a high rate of speed, or they drive into the sinkhole, they then come to all of us as parents and they want us to fix the car. So I'm saying all of that to say we can't enable them. We've got to let them do what it is that they want to do to live their lives, and then allow them to endure whatever challenges they're going to endure. One of your concerns about your daughter is that she has a difficult relationship with men, and the reason is because she's all over the place. Nobody can keep up with her. And many of us know what that looks like when we have a daughter who's living the life, as they like to call it, living their best life, and they're all over the place. Well, if they want to get married, at some point they've got to settle down. It's the same thing with men. At some point we have to settle down. We can't, want to hang out with our boys. We can't want to hang out with, and just hang out with the guys and only see the significant other when we feel like being bothered. The same thing with young ladies. They can't be all over the place so that no man can keep up with, no one man can keep up with them. So part of your problem is now she's having a relationship, or whatever you want to call it, with more than one man because one man can't keep up with her. That's a problem. It's going to take her a longer period of time to settle down and get married, and you're hoping someday have grandchildren. Well, in addition to that, she's going to experience a lot of bumps and bruises along the way because she's so busy being busy that she's never going to be able to build wealth. And that's the underlying issue. Now let me kind of wrap our heads around all of this. Every person, young or old, we should all be focused on building and preserving wealth. That has to be our focus. We're so busy trying to enjoy other components of life that we don't realize the significance of building wealth. When you build wealth, you do have the opportunity to enjoy other components of life. But you have to build it first, and you have to preserve it so that it's lasts from generation to generation. We don't want to make it so easy that they don't have to be responsible for anything. I mean, we're all All active and responsible parents, we're all guilty of that. At some point in time, we're all guilty of it. We are so busy trying to make certain that our children have everything they want. See, it started out that we wanted our children to have a better life than we had. That's the way it starts for all of us. All of us who have ever come from a socioeconomic background that was challenging, we all wanted our children to have a better life than we had. And so we began pouring into them a better life. But life got good for them. And so consequently, everything was about a good time. And they don't focus on building wealth. The ways that we're going to build wealth, pardon me, and if anyone has any other suggestions, feel free to email them to me at newlifepastor@comcast.net. But 3 of the ways that you're going to be able to build wealth are through the financial markets. So, I often talk about the stock market, but at some point you might be able to get to the place where you're able to invest in hedge funds or private equity, alternative investments. But the foundation of that starts with the stock market, and that's something that can be started at a very early point in time. The next is home ownership. Problem today is many people don't want to own homes. Your daughter is like many other young people. She doesn't want to own anything, she wants to rent. So she's building wealth for someone else. And that's good for us as investors. It's not good for them as the next generation. So she wants to rent. She doesn't want to buy anything. And that's the case with a lot of young people today. A lot of the millennial generation. Okay. But the problem with that is they're not building any wealth. So home ownership is another method of building wealth. Because over time, owning property is going to appreciate in value. That's the history of the economic society in which we live. And of course, the last thing is entrepreneurship. So if they're not doing one of those, let me rephrase that. If they're not doing 2 of those things, at least 2 of those things, they're missing out on the opportunity to build wealth. And you want her to someday get married, have children, so that you have grandchildren, and that's a goal. I get it. She has to start with by building wealth. So one of the things that she can do is, and I'm encouraging young people across the board to do this. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. I'm encouraging everyone to do this. Save their money, buy a home. And then if you get married, you already have an investment property, because you can then rent that one out when you and your spouse decide to buy a new home together. So that's starting the process of building wealth. That has to be our goal. You're not going to be able to teach her that now because you've enabled her for too long. What you are going to be able to do is continue to have the conversations with her, and at some point in time, the light's going to come on, and she's going to make a decision to do something different. So, for many of them, it's one of 2 things are going to happen. They're either going to turn 30 and decide they're either going to get married before 30 and then buy a home, save their money and buy a home, or they're going to turn 30 and decide, I'm either not married right now and I'm not on the verge of getting married, and I'm not on the verge of getting married and having children, so let me buy a home. Many of us started earlier. I get it. But at some point, that light's going to come on for it. And some of them are even going to come on later. So it might be 35 before they decide to buy a home. But I'm encouraging everyone. Home ownership is going to be key. If we don't own property, we don't own wealth. And our Father, God, owns all the hills, all the land. That should tell us right there that home ownership, property ownership, is going to be significantly important in our lives. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will place you into our queue so that you can experience America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you autopay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill at T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your husband wanted your children to take over the family business that he inherited, or I should say was passed down to him from his father. However, your children have no interest. Okay, so in a situation like this, this is very difficult for many of us. So let me walk you through this. And for all of us who are business owners or investors, I'm going to take you through a scenario that we all need to be very aware of, and I might not go too far into generational wealth, but I am going to try and break down to you the issues when we have children who do not want to take on the responsibility of the business, or they just have no interest at all. So let me begin by saying this. And I don't care how long your children have been around the business, how much they've helped with the business. If they're not interested, they're not going to carry on the business. So here's what I can say to you that God wants of all of us, and that is this. First of all, pray that God will send someone who would, until your husband retires, who would take an interest in running the business after your husband has decided he's going to either, and because God showed me in that secret place, I'll just be more specific, that he wants to semi-retire. So someone who's going to take on the responsibility of continuing to grow the business, build the business, and someday will perhaps be in a position to acquire the business. That's the first thing. And if that's not God's will, because we always pray for God's will, then what your husband should do at some point is then, when he's ready to retire, sell the business, take the proceeds from the sale of the business, and then make certain that it is placed in trust for the generations to come, or make certain that if you've got a philanthropic interest, that it is designated for the philanthropic interest, and leave your children the things they can see. So, we all own homes, the children get the home. We have bank accounts, the children get the bank accounts. We have investments, the children, stock investments in publicly traded companies, the children get the stocks. But because they're not interested in the business, they should not receive the proceeds from the business. That should either be dedicated to the next generation after them, and if they are not going to have children, then make certain the rest of it is allocated for, the remainder of it is allocated for your philanthropic interests. There are ways, and I'm not your financial advisor, so you need to speak with your financial advisor about that. But there are ways to make certain in will and trust that all of the things you desire to accomplish can be accomplished. They just require work. They require research and work. They require legal counsel and financial counsel. It's work. But there are things you can do to ensure that what's important to you and your husband can be carried on, and at the same time your family's taken care of. I mean, it's, you know, if they have no interest in the business and the business has been successful, and if they have no interest in the business, what they're telling you is they have no interest in the proceeds from that business. But you're home and you have a beautiful, valuable home, a valuable asset. You have stocks. You have bank accounts. All of those things can be divided equally. Personal property that has value. All of those things can be divided equally among your children. But the big vision, they're not interested in the big vision. So because they're not interested in the big vision, they can't be the much larger vision, they cannot be responsible for what you wanted that to accomplish. So if with grandchildren, it should be dedicated to that generation so that then they can begin something that would be of interest to them also. And someday their children. There are ways to accomplish what we desire to accomplish that sometimes don't involve our own children because they have no interest in what you're doing. You know, and part of it is, so I had a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine earlier this week who I actually brought up in the Sunday sermon because I was talking about how every relationship has to have a purpose, and we were having a conversation about, and I mentioned to him, you know, that I shared with the congregation one of our previous conversations, and you know, it's been a long-term relationship, and I said to him, I said, you know, I'll never forget that someone once told me that no matter how much success you have and no matter how much wealth you build, your children are going to get to a point, an age, a place in time where they don't understand how you got where you are because you're pretty much an idiot. There's no reason, there's no way to reason how you got to where you are today because you're pretty much an idiot. And I never forgot that, but the reality is, and the analogy to that is that children sometimes have no interest in what we're doing because they don't really think we know what we're doing. They think we're clueless. They think that we just kind of went through life and had success by accident. Even though they watch you work diligently, even though they observe the fruit of your labor, not that you go overboard, but you really are living a good life, a good quality of life, and they really don't understand how you got there because in their minds, we're clueless. And yet, here we are. And so therefore, because they don't really think we know what we're doing, they've decided that they can do it better, but I have no interest in what you're doing. So I'm gonna do what I'm interested in doing because you don't really know what you're doing, and I don't really want to waste my time on doing what you don't know what you're doing. So I say all of that to say that you and your husband are going to have some decisions that you have to make, and one of those decisions has to be allow your children to have what they can see, and what is openly available to them, they can have it all. When you're deceased, everything that you have in will or trust for them that they can see is for them. Everything else has to go for whatever purpose you deem necessary, because they don't have any interest. And because they have no interest in it, they will consider it a windfall. And when people consider it a windfall, that means that it will be gone like the wind, and before the fall comes. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, stop in at their retail store. They have everything that a man could possibly need. They have shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. I'm in Charles Tyrwhitt attire right now. If you are not in any of those areas, stop, just pick up the phone, call their 800 number, or you can order from online at ctshirts.com. Charles Tyrwhitt will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And the White Company, located in London, the UK, and they also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. If you are in New York, check their store hours, stop in at their retail store. They have everything that you could possibly need. Home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. And if you're not in New York, you can order from the White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And I want to announce that both companies will be having some sales going on in the month of February, so I'll keep you updated on those sales also. And I also want to remind everyone that all of your communications coming in about nutrition and health will be answered the first Thursday of the month, not tomorrow, but the following Thursday, with our monthly contributor, Rebecca Buva, licensed and registered dietitian and nutritionist, is going to share with us whatever information she has available that we can improve, enhance our health and wellness. You can view her website at beccathedietitian.com. She will be with us next Thursday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, scheduling permitted. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are struggling with the lack of confidence, and you want to know what can you do to regain your confidence when your confidence has been shaken. What can you do to restore it? So first of all, I'm going to say this to you, because there's a scripture that tells us, greater is he that is in you than he that's in the world. But the scripture also tells us that we are beautifully and wonderfully made. We are made in the image and the likeness of God. So you need to know that you are capable, that you are competent. And when you realize that you have those two components within you, that you can do all things through Christ, which strengthens you, you will restore your confidence. When you truly believe that what God has placed inside of you is a gift and a talent. Listen, everyone has a gift and everyone has a talent. We just have to develop them. Now, some of us are never going to play in the NBA. Some of us are never going to be professional tennis players. Some of us are never going to be professional golfers. Those are all talents, but some of us are not going to be neurosurgeons. Some of us are not going to be attorneys. Some of us are not. Everybody's got a gift and a talent. You just have to explore the gift and talent that God has placed inside of you. You have a career. You are capable and competent in your career. You just have to continue to develop it. You have to know that what God has placed inside of you is capable and competent to do all things through Christ, which strengthens you. If you want to build your confidence and restore your confidence, build your faith in the Lord and what God has formed you from your mother's womb to do. the purpose that God has placed inside of you. When you find your purpose, you will find your peace. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast 3D is brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com.